Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dance Teacher Pep Talk. I am your host, Amanda, and I am so glad you are here. This is a space for dance teachers and anyone interested in teaching dance who is looking for motivation and fresh ideas. As teachers, we spend our days motivating and giving pep talks to our students, and now this podcast is a pep talk just for you. We hope that it helps to ignite new ideas and even work through some deep dance-related thoughts before you head into the studio. Thank you for your support, and now let's get into today's episode. Hi, everybody, and happy almost official summer for those of you living in the Northern Hemisphere. Today's episode is kind of a mishmash of tips and tricks of things that help me during the summer to stay on track and inspired with the different tasks that I have. And so for me, my biggest roles are teacher, competition team coordinator, and choreographer. And I thought it would be a good idea for today's episode to share some tips about all of these different categories today in the summer months because, summer's very different for us. Some of us maybe teach the whole year through without really changing up much, but for a lot of us, we follow a school year calendar. And with that, once summer is let out for school, dance is let out as well, and things look a little different. So I wanted to share some things today that really help me to get through the summer in an inspired way, but also for myself to have the downtime that is so necessary and required at this time of year. So let's start off with the category of teaching. I'm going to break these categories down so that depending on what roles you have, you may only want to listen to the parts that you also share as a role. But I wanted to share all three that I have. So we're going to start off with teaching, as I said. And summer can be so fun for teaching. However, let's be real, it can also be so scary and stressful because most of the time our paychecks will change. The weekly class structure and the consistent pay might not be a reality for all of us, depending on how your studios do summer scheduling. But because of that, there is also the fun exploration of teaching at other studios you don't normally do during the year for guest and masterclass spots during summer programs. And, I feel like so many people look to hire out guests during the summer, especially it's just such a nice time where people are just looking to get work when and where they can. And so many of the times I notice people will hire out guests during summer programs all over the Facebook forums, so if you're curious of that, just take a look around because there are postings everywhere. I am not currently in a season of my life where I'm guest teaching or traveling around, but when I was, I loved the opportunity to guest teach because it was refreshing and inspiring to be in new environments and to share what I'm most passionate about with others. For those of you who are going out to guest teach, I wanted to share just a couple of tips that I use for myself because one of the big things going into guest teaching is you don't know these students and you don't know what they're capable of. You don't need what they need more work on. You might just be given a specific style and a time and a level, and we'll see you then. But it's so important going into these classes, like how do we make them the most worthwhile for the time that we do have them when we have no idea or background knowledge around the students that we're heading in to teach. So a tip that I have for that is I would say if you can find or decide on three main pillars to your teaching, your structure, your philosophy. What makes you feel like a unique teacher? What do you feel that you bring is different to the table? And make sure to incorporate all three of those. Build your class structure on the three ideas you just picked alongside the style that you are being asked to teach. So for example, my three might be, I love a meditation, body scan, or class introduction. I like to make everyone feel seen. And I strongly believe in conditioning and strengthening. So with those as my top three, I would try to develop my class around that. So I know I'm going to start off with a meditation or breath work or a body scan, no matter what style I'm teaching, just to get us on the page of what are we doing today? What am I as your teacher bringing to this space? And what are you as a student bringing to the space? For another one of the pillars, conditioning and strengthening, I would take a look at what combination or progressions I'm wanting to bring into the class and make sure to include in the warm-up movements and practices that directly strengthen and prepare the body for the material ahead. And lastly, for everyone to feel seen, I always make sure to circulate the room. I don't stand in one spot. I like to be in different areas, and I love being observant about what each individual brings to the space. And if there is a time and a place for that to be shared, even if it is a quick comment going across the floor, I always make sure to do that. Other things I love in the summer at a home studio are incorporating themes. I think this is so fun. Or adding elements to classes that normally wouldn't be taught during the main year to keep it interesting and different for the students. So even if you are working from syllabus, you can bring in some different things to help pull that syllabus out or pull those skills out of the syllabus in a new way. And so for me, themes can be really fun. But even if your studio doesn't do a theme program or a theme day, you can always create a theme class for yourself. And I think that can always be so fun. So whether it's using music from a particular music artist, or maybe we're doing like a whole Disney class, or we're doing a class that has nature influences, whatever it is that you choose as your theme, sometimes it's just really fun to run with it and see what it does, because it also helps your teaching to be more creative around that topic as well, and to pull the skills in that you're wanting to work alongside the theme that you choose. And I think it's also important to remind your home studio dancers about what we're doing now is directly preparing them for what is to come in the fall. We're bridging the year to the summer to the new season coming up. We are starting the building blocks for XYZ, and you are going to see a lot more of this in the year to come, for example. So I think it's so important too that summer program and summer dance is looked at from a teacher perspective as a way of preparing for what is to come, because it also gets the students excited and wanting to sign up and ready to go for the fall season. So those are just a couple of tips that I have in the teaching realm of things over the summer. And I know that can look different for all of us because we have different teaching schedules through these months. So for our next category, I'm going to jump into competition team coordinator. This one, wow, this has changed and shifted a lot for me over the years due to the demands and needs of the competition world itself. So if you are a competition team coordinator out there, hats off to you, because I know that this is a lot of work, especially in the summer. It's like the time that you want to come down is the time that you have to ramp up. And, I've been a coordinator now for over a decade, and I will say that as of the past 6 years or so, the competitiveness of competition in getting into events at a very early date is wild. It never used to be this way, but I've definitely adapted with the times. I know that basically as soon as the dance year ends, the new season lineup needs to start being created. Many events have pre-registration due in August, some July, and even this year, I saw some are opening their pre-registration in June. So you really got to be on your toes with this, and here are a few things that have helped me as a competition team coordinator in the summer months. So I love the resource Dance Competition Hub. It's a website, but it can help you to search events during your season by location. And I'm not sure if it's international or if it's just something that we have here in the US. But if you are in the US, I highly recommend it. And even though I'm recommending it, you can't rely on it completely. And I'm going to explain why in a little bit. But Dance Competition Hub for me is always helpful when creating the new season event schedule. And as always, I always keep our favorite tried and true events lined up by keeping check on when their new year event schedule drops. And I immediately write down any of the dates which may best suit our team. And then after that, I use Dance Competition Hub with, the timeline of months that we're looking at for our season to see what's coming to the area. Now, the reason why I say I caution this is there have been on occasion times where the dates that are listed on the Competition Hub are not always the dates, but that's only happened very rarely, whether it's not the dates or the actual location. So I would say double check on that. And the other thing is that with a lot of new competitions out there, not everybody is on Dance Competition Hub. So you might be missing out on a lot of other events and dates and things that come to your area if you're strictly sticking to Dance Competition Hub. But Facebook is a great spot to find new events. Social media is a great spot to find events, especially like if you're on a dance teacher forum on Facebook, because I feel like people are always recommending events that they love. And I think that is always a good choice to go with, because if they're being recommended by other dance teachers, then we have a good feeling heading into it that it's a good event for us to try out. Something else that I do as well along with this is I send out an end of the year survey to the team so that I can hear which events they loved, liked, and didn't like, because even though the opinions vary, they are customers and their input matters. So if I can see a majority trend towards different events, the survey is definitely the way to go, and it has helped me a lot. I use SurveyMonkey for that. Very easy to use. But sometimes I've been surprised because events I thought have been well loved, I actually come to find out are not as enjoyed as they once were. So I really make sure to do the survey at the end of every season, preparing for the next season ahead. Another important item to note when choosing competitions is to be really aware of their rules, particularly how they age average and their music time limits. I would say those two. Also maybe group size divisions. I would say those are probably like the biggest things that I look for, because there is a handful of competitions in the US that age average their teens as 12 to 14. And there is a handful of competitions that age average their teens as 13 to 15. So going into the season, what works best for you? For me, I personally always gravitate towards the 13 to 15 teen division, only because I see a huge growth difference between a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old. And that also reflects into the senior division, because if you have a 12-14 teen event, seniors would be 15 to 18. And to me, that's a big gap as well. So when you have a 13 to 15 teen event, you then get a 16 to 18 senior category. But honestly, just go with whatever works best for you and be aware. If you do a bunch of different events with a bunch of different age leveling in your season, be prepared in that year for some of your junior pieces to average teen and your teen pieces to average senior from time to time, depending on how that goes. So knowing this ahead of time can really help tone down the element of surprise. And also other things to note when choosing a competition I mentioned was music time limits, because this is, I think, really important to know. Either try to pick ones that have similar limits, or know that whichever event has the lowest time maximum, that is the one you need to go with to let your choreographers know what the time limit would be, and going off of that lowest time. Or you need to be prepared for your dancers to pay extra for extended fee charges. Now, speaking of charges, preparing for these events and these pre-registrations, deposits are huge during the summer. And I look at it in this light. It is going to happen. The deposits are there, so don't let them sneak up on you. Start a plan, create it in place so that you know that when those deposits come due, if you're wanting to do that, expect that that is the way it is going to be. I mean, even though it's challenging and even though it may seem really difficult because we're not bringing in that money during summer and then we're expected to put these massive deposits down, if you really want to get into events that are very competitive with their pre-registration, it is a part of it. And even a lot of them too will not say you have to do a deposit, but strongly encourage. And with those competitions, what I would hope is that if you get into their pre-registration and don't put a deposit down, if they start getting close to filling, that they let you know hey, we have other studios that are wanting to come in. You pre-registered but didn't put down a deposit. Can you put down a deposit? So that is something that I think we just have to be on our toes with. And it is another aspect of how the competition world has really changed. And I think this is all dependent too on region, because where I'm from, competitions are so prevalent. You could have one weekend and within a 50-mile radius, there may be 3 to 4 regional events from different competition companies, or even more. And I think a lot of this is like I said, depending on your area. Is it an easy place for the competitions to travel to? Are they located in those areas? Things like that. So depending on where you live, the competitiveness of getting into competitions might be even worse than what I'm used to experiencing, because there is a lot of options, and there are a lot of options for many different weekends in that spring season. So definitely being aware of that.
Okay, moving into our last category of summer suggestions, this is choreography. And so for choreography, I highly recommend you listen to episode 52 for my 3 tips on choreography inspiration. And these are tools I literally use to plan new pieces for a season. You know, I do a lot of song searching once recital is over to build up my inspiration list. But even though my choreography might not start until late July or the month of August, I am already preparing and planning as soon as I'm able after recital. You know, I'm not dedicating the same amount of time going into classes at night to teach, so I take some of that time to music search. Some days, not all days, and the rest I take to enjoy my life and vacation, because that is also a hugely important part of your summer if you're able to have that. It helps you to rest, reset, rejuvenate, refresh, all those things. And so it's also important to remember that that is a part of your summer as well. I hope that today's tips were helpful for you to get organized and inspired for the summer. And like I just said, make sure to fill your time with rest and vacation too. By being organized, I'm able to do this because I can get done what needs to when it needs to be done and lay back the rest of the time, or, you know, just enjoy life. I have one more episode to launch before I'll be taking a summer break from the podcast. So make sure to check back next week for that. It is going to be a very informative episode. And I want to thank you all so much for your listens and support. If you feel that today's episode inspired you and you'd like to pass it on to a friend or colleague, I would so love that. And don't forget to follow and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so that the podcast can be more accessible to dance teachers near and far. Thanks again, everyone, and I hope you have a beautiful week.